Today, we're going to camo up. Hey guys, Lucas here in Venture Surplus, and today we're taking a look at how to camouflage your gear, whether it be your kit and some pouches, backpacks, and just miscellaneous other gear. We're going to talk about kind of why it's important to, and then how to do it, and then show some examples as we can. Most importantly, we're just going to talk about camouflage and why it's important. So let's get into camouflaging your gear. All right, so let's talk about camouflage real quick and what it even means for when you camouflage a piece of gear. So camouflage is a means or method of concealment, and so concealment at that point means it's harder to see you. It's a hiding effect. So you're hiding from the opposing observer, whoever that may be, whether it be Milsim, Minecraft, or even military, something like that. And that's a safety factor right there too, is the harder it is to see you because you're concealing yourself, the safer you are, and the more able you are to accomplish your mission. So that's achieved through a lot of different ways, that concealment aspect of camouflage. Whether it be earth tone gear, so this matches my natural environment as it is. So there's a lot of coyote out here, so coyote's good because it's going to blend in the background of the natural environment. But we can take a step further and use what are disruptive patterns. So right here I have OCP. Now this forms a disruptive pattern around my body and my gear and my pouches, and that is breaking up the general outline so that when you're looking at me, it's hard to determine exactly what's going on. Now obviously from me to the camera or me to your screen, it's pretty easy to determine that. But at a distance, and especially the greater distance gets, whereas if I was just wearing all black, you can see my outline pretty well, or just normal clothing, camouflage with this natural colors that fit my environment are going to break up my outline, break up my body, break up my gear, make it harder to see me. So what we're doing with camouflage is breaking up our outline or silhouette, matching the tones of our environment with a disruptive pattern or a solid color that does that, and then we're just reducing shine, anything else that would make us stand out in our environment. So that's just a kind of a smashed version of camouflage and how it works and what it does. Camouflage is definitely how to achieve camouflage and what camouflage does for you and how to make a camouflage pattern. It can get pretty wild, but I just want to give you a brief explanation of what we're even talking about when we talk about camouflage. Now, let's get into the gear that is camouflage, stuff that isn't camouflage, how to camouflage it, and then examples of how to camouflage it. So, lots of camouflage. Let's get into it more. All right, so what kind of gear do you camouflage? Well, we usually start with our body, and that is by wearing camouflage uniform or an earth tone that works well within our environment. So, that's a pretty easy one. You just find that a camouflage pattern is going to work, and then you go from there for the rest of your kit. Now, that means you can buy pouches if it's a modern pattern. You're usually going to find pretty much any pouch you want, any kind of chest rig, any kind of vest, any kind of body armor accessory, anything like that. It's going to be available in your pattern. For backpacks, it gets a little harder. And then for everything else, it gets a little harder too. So let's talk about that kind of gear that gets a little harder to find for what you need to do as far as camouflage goes. So when we move past our initial gear that's easy to kind of get, we get into those objects are less easy to get camouflaged. Now sometimes it just means the gear you're able to get and the style you want to get isn't in the camouflage pattern you want. Whether that be something like this, UCP, good gear, kind of crap pattern. So we apply camouflage to it to make it work better within our environment and when we're wearing it on our body, so it creates that disruptive effect, which means we're more concealed. From there, your weapon. Now, yes, nowadays we can get our weapons or rifles, whatever it is, airsoft guns like this one, in FTE from the get-go, earth tones, but a lot of times they're going to come like this, black. Now, while black is a natural color, and the fact that their shadows do exist, this doesn't really exist as a shape in black within the natural environment. So we got to take this and camouflage it. So we paint our rifles. And for our rifles, we have accessories. Now, this bipod, well, not massively huge, to even the untrained observer, they see that piece of black sticking off, something that they can't really identify in the first place. That's something they're going to take notice of. That's something you're going to want to kind of take and conceal more by adding camouflage pattern. From there, other pieces of equipment, so bipods, tripods. This is a non-natural shape. You're going to apply some camouflage to it. Maybe more gear that, while it's in a good coloration, you need to camouflage it because while this is good and it's going to work, it's going to also stand out from the rest of your gear. So you put that khaki pouch on your kit with multicam. While it does work in your environment, it kind of sticks out a little bit. So camouflaging this to better blend in with the gear you have and the existing stuff, that's a good idea. From there, other miscellaneous gear like camouflage binos, equipment like that. Then we get to our helmets. For our helmets, that's something we even have to apply camouflage to as well. So yes, you can paint your helmet, you can apply helmet covers. Sometimes you can take it a step further to really get that concealment effect down. So scrim, that helps break up the outline of what is your head, which the human eye picks up the human body very well because like sees like and that kind of stuff. So breaking up the outline of your head, that big old dome piece, does a lot for you, and it helps break up that general outline of your head to shoulders, which is something that you can pick up really easily no matter how well or how untrained you are. Then we have aspects of shine that exist within all of our gear, but something like the good example is our helmet mount right here. This NVG bracket, it's strict metal. Now while it's kind of a dulled out metal, it still has a shine aspect to it. So we're going to take camouflage and camouflage methods and get rid of that shine, so that way we're poking our head out into the sunlight, we're not hitting that with shine and giving away our position and getting rid of any concealment we did have. And then sometimes we just got big old objects like this backpack. Now, this solid color earth tone coyote does pretty well for out here in Colorado, and it's going to do well for pretty much anywhere. But this is big, it's awkward shape, so adding more camouflage to it is going to help conceal that item better, break up the outline, have it less observable from the opposing observer, and just in general make it hard to see what we're doing, hard to see what's carried in that backpack, on that backpack, who's even carrying that backpack at first. So that's the kind of gear we're camouflaging, and let's talk a little bit more about that too. So when it comes to blending in your gear with the rest of your gear, even though it's in that kind of camouflage color scheme, earth tones, and everything like that, is pretty much necessary when you want to achieve that full camouflage effect for concealment. So this coyote pouch right here, it is a natural earth tone color that's going to blend in with my environment. But for the rest of my gear, it kind of sticks out. So a little bit of spray paint on that and camouflaging it with the pattern, even as simple as it could be as just a little snakeskin type pattern, makes it blend in better with the rest of my gear. So it matches that multicam better, even though it's in coyote as a base color. So that's where you can kind of apply. You're not able to find the pouch and the gear you want, or you're just handed this item, like this is what you got to use. You can take that item, apply camouflage, make it work better at the end of the day. So let's get into some of those methods of applying camouflage to our gear. All right, we're going to talk about 3 different ways to apply some camouflage patterns. Talk about spray painting, talk about camo wrapping, and then we're going to get into last, which is self-decoration, vegging out. I'm going to re-hit a few of those items I talked about to camouflage. What I'm going to talk about real quick is which items kind of work best with which application. So I'm going to repeat myself a little bit from the beginning, but just really want to get into so you can see what kind of gear works best for which application, so that when we go over the basics how to do those applications, you know which gear you're working with. So let's look at spray painting and a few items that are good to spray paint. So in general, a really good item to spray paint is pouches and gear and nylon backpacks, all that stuff that you can get in solid colors or a pattern that doesn't necessarily work for you in your area, and make it work. So all these pouches on my rig right here start off as khaki, and while khaki works pretty good for my area, it's maybe not the best thing to have just all solid colored pouches. So I can take some spray painting, apply a pattern on here, break up the form of the pouches overall, and make it just work better in general. So spray painting your pouch is a really good way to do it and apply camouflage to them, or to take something that doesn't really work for your area at all, like UCP. I can take what is a good pouch at the end of the day and good material and make it work a little better. Now dyeing also works. We're talking about spray painting today, but just taking kind of crap pattern, making it a little better and more usable. It's also a good way to take what is a brighter pattern, a brighter material, maybe it's almost a little shiny at the end of the day because it's brand new, and darken it up some by applying an even lighter pattern on here with some of the methods we're going to talk about, and kind of cheat your way into breaking your gear as far as taking what is shiny, what is new, what's crisp, and making it look a little more broke in so it does blend a little better at the end of the day. Re-hitting on pouches like these coyote flaps right here, I can take them, apply a little paint to them, and just make them work a little better as far as the camouflage aspect, from taking earth tone to earth tone, making it work just a tad bit better. Rifles are probably the most common way or common thing you're going to spray paint. If you're taking what is normally large solid color black, applying camouflage, that's going to match better with your gear and in your environment and just work out a little better. So, rifles, pretty common. We're not going to talk about specifically how to apply spray paint to your rifle, but the concepts we're going to talk about in a minute will work on your rifle just fine. And then other large tools, just like this axe, You know, it came in a natural coloration, but I can apply paint to it and make it work a little better. And then rehitting on shine, something like bare metal, like this MVG mount, this bracket right here, I'm gonna apply some paint to it and get rid of the shine and just make it a little safer to wear at the end of the day if I hit direct sunlight. So spray paint's fun, it's easy, and it's a great way to apply patterns to a large variety of gear and get it working a little better and blending a little better with you and your environment. So let's look at a couple examples of camo wrapping. So camo wrapping is the next one we're going to talk about. And for example, an example piece to really camo wrap up, something like tripods, large items that make awkward shapes, and you may not want to spray paint them, or you may want to change that camo pattern up quite often, or just add some grip and texture to it. So tripods, bipods is a good one to do it too. And also large tools, so something like bolt cutters, commonly because it adds some grip to it, and it's an easy way to apply camouflage pattern to something like this. So items like tools, bipods, tripods, large items that you may not want to spray paint necessarily. You got to do it quickly. You don't want it permanent, but you want a good pattern for your area. Camo wrapping is a really good way to do it. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is self-decoration and netting. We'll get into that when we get into that one, but backpacks, your person to an extent, and then some of the large pieces of gear that you can carry and some pieces of gear that you will wear are good to apply vegetation and netting to. We'll get into that one when we get into that one. So those are the 3 different methods of applying camouflage we're going to talk about throughout this video. Those are a few example pieces of the gear you'll be applying that to. But really what it comes down to is taking the gear that you have that may not be camouflaged or camouflaged in the right pattern or coloration and making it work with your gear and the rest of your environment. So everything from your knife to your rifle to your vehicles commonly are camouflaged out, and it just takes that, everything compounds itself because one thing that's not camouflaged might be the thing that sticks out and gets you observed from the opposing observer. So really taking it down and nailing it down to this needs to be camouflaged, this can be out and in the open. It just, everything adds up at the end of the day. And while you can get kind of crazy with it, and just think about what you're using, what needs to be painted up, what needs to be camo wrapped up, what needs to be netted, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so painting's fun, wrapping's fun, applying netting's fun, but make sure you're doing it in a way that actually works for your environment, works for you, works for your gear. So let's get into some of the basic methods of applying each of those applications of camouflage to your gear. All right, so let's talk about spray painting gear first and how to apply a camouflage pattern with your spray paint. So that's pretty much the most common way people are going to do it, is using a spray can and rattle canning your gear. It's easy, it's cost effective, and you can get some pretty cool effects out of it as far as applying camouflage pattern. Materials needed: Krylon and Rust-Oleum have a good ultra flat camouflage kind of line that does a really good job, and you can find them in the colors that work in pretty much any environment. Tans, browns, and there's an OD green and a Ranger green depending on what brand you get, so you can kind of mix it up really well as far as what kind of coloration you're using. Other materials, these like cheap sniper veils off Amazon that cost like $10 nowadays. Used to be a lot cheaper. They have a pretty good grit in there, so you can apply this over the pattern or over the object and then spray paint on top of it and get some really cool camouflage type patterns that are more of a snakeskin effect, which create a disruptive pattern that blends into the gear and just breaks up the outline in general. So there, more so you can do stencils, or you can use cardboard cutouts, plastic stencils, stuff you can buy off like Etsy especially, and you can get some pretty cool patterns and really match with the colors you can find your gear and the rest of your camouflage patterns, and really kind of take what is just a natural earth tone and make an actual camouflage pattern on top of it. So for effects, as far as like when you apply this kind of paint to your gear, does it have a bad NIR signature and like that? I've never seen it like make an object pop. From my time in the military, in the army, we used a mix of this and some issued paints. I never saw anything go, oh no, that's been painted kind of thing. It's still flat with the rest of the objects around me. So as far as night vision goes, spray paint's a good one to go with as far as Rust-Oleum and Krylon, because I've never seen just bad effects under night vision. Now, if you apply a really, really, really thick coat on something that already wasn't NR compliant in the first place, you might have some weird signature effects, but in general, you're pretty good to go, pretty safe with these brands. So let's now get into just how to do this in the first place. So the real simple way to do it, when you're going to rattle can something, is just apply stripes and blobs and like a really rough macro disruptive pattern. Now that's the easiest way to do it. Getting good at spray painting, I mean, any kind of job you do is going to be better than what it already is most likely. So the better you are and the better you think you are is really comes down to just aesthetics. It's not so much of like, oh no, I really suck at this. It's like, it's doing the job. It's just whether or not it really like looks cool. So no matter what job you do, you're doing a good job. Don't worry about this guy did it better than you. The effects are probably gonna be about the same. But stripes and blobs are pretty much the easiest way to get a little bit of camouflage effect on there, and to make it blend better with the rest of your gear and your environment. Because all we're doing is we're just breaking up this general outline of this pouch so that when it's filled up, it's harder to determine that it's filled up, what shape it is, and to blend in with the rest of our gear. So hopefully you're using colors that work with the rest of your gear. But from there, it's pretty easy. It's gonna have effect. This already is gonna blend better with the rest of my multicam gear just because of coloration. So stripes and blobs, really good, large, disruptive pattern. That's gonna do the job. So let's get into making it a little fancier looking. Okay, so let's say you don't want to do stripes and blobs in a big disruptive pattern like this where the lines are pretty thick. Like I said, stencils and stuff like the sniper veil is a really easy way to achieve that as far as getting a more of a snakeskin pattern that it's disruptive and it's just a blending kind of pattern. So applying that, putting that on top of the pouch and gear you want. Best case is to fill that pouch or a piece of gear out. So with a backpack, fill it up, a pouch, fill it up, and just put this on top of it. Watch your curves, get it kind of tucked in there. So when you're spray painting on top of it, you're good to go. And then find the color you want. I also get asked like distance from the object. Fairly close, but not so much you're just like plopping a big old blob on there as you're spray painting. So yeah. You want to get a good thick coat from the first go. Otherwise, your next coats won't never line up perfectly the second or third time you do it. So let's see what that did. So again, pretty simple, nothing much to it, but this is already going to be breaking up the outline of that pouch a little better and making it blend in better with the rest of your gear. So that disruptive effect is all it's achieving to achieve some camouflage effect. So again, pretty easy. Spray paint's easy. If you're worried about not being good at it, just get a piece of cardboard, put whatever kind of pattern you want on there, and practice. And just practice again, and then do it again until you're comfortable spray painting your gear. Because once you spray paint it, it is kind of a permanent effect. So that's the simple how-to of how to do this. All right, so another object you might have to find yourself camouflaging is something like a big old tripod. Something you got to carry on you and put out there, because at the end of the day, that's going to stick out pretty hard against a natural environment. Even from a distance, you're going to see that kind of standing out, because a lot of times they come black, or even the color they come in just doesn't quite match your environment. So the easy way to do these kind of things, you can spray paint it, or you can camo wrap it. So we're going to look at camo wrap real quick and what this kind of does for a piece of gear. So camo wrapping is a really easy way to tape over kind of awkward, especially, well, maybe not awkward, but more cylindrical kind of items, and really get a good effect on there from in a really quick way as far as camouflaging it. So this kind of stuff just wraps on there. There's really no technique to it. Just don't stretch it too far, because you kind of lose that any sort of pattern on there and it gets whited out. And this also takes in the color of your natural environment just through use. It's going to get dirty. It's going to match what's around you. So applying this does help out quite a bit. Now from here, that bottom leg, we probably want to paint it a little better and to get it a little more broken up. But let's paint up the rest of these, or let's wrap up the rest of these legs and see how well it does when it's camo wrapped up. So as you can see, it's kind of harder to see this tripod right now. So just applying that camo wrap tape applies natural colorations and a disruptive type pattern. That's also a little mimicry, which is something else we can talk about later on. But it just breaks up the outlines and blends it into the natural environment better. So camo wrapping is a really easy way to do this. It's cost effective-ish because it's non-permanent. You can take it off if you don't want it on there. And it's just easy. So this can go on large objects like this, rifles you can do it on, you can do it on binoculars, spotting scopes, all those kind of things. And it's a super easy way that you can take off and it's non-permanent. You don't have to worry about kind of messing up anything that's expensive or ruining it because you hate what you just did. And this can be used in conjunction with tape, or not tape, spray painting, and then also with the other method we're going to look at, which is more of a netting type camouflage pattern method. But yeah, this is a pretty easy one. All right, so the last form of camouflaging we're going to talk about application-wise is most fun and also can be the most expensive, and that is self-decoration, or more commonly known as vegging out within the tactical and military world. We're going to talk about 2 ways to do that. We're going to talk about that within netting, and then we're going to touch briefly on how to do it with natural materials and actually getting into vegging out. We're not going to talk too hard about vegging out because A, I don't feel like talking for an hour about vegging out, and 2, it's on you to practice how to veg out, because if you do this wrong, it doesn't matter how many videos you watched, how long the video was. Once you do this and do it wrong, it's going to show. You're going to show up a lot easier than you think. So you're going to look like a walking bush, even though you don't think you look like a walking bush, stuff like that. But netting is the easiest way to do it, and it's kind of an expensive way to do it. Individual camo nets like this one are pretty cheap, easy to get, and they do the job. It's going to use a disrupted pattern to break up the general outline of the object you're putting it on, whether it be your backpack, your person, stuff like that. But netting, when it gets more nicer, can get a little expensive. Put this on the right way. And this also has a disruptive effect because it's breaking up that hard outline of the backpack, whatever you put it on. And it also has a texture effect to it, which is a principle and method of camouflage, is that texture, because you want to be able to match what's around you as far as how it feels and how it looks, because not everything's flat. So the texture, something I haven't touched on much yet, but texture is a really important part of camouflage, because if you're not matching the texture environment, and that's really just how it looks, how it feels, what you're looking out there. There are bumps, there are hills, and not everything's flat. Because when you look at, like I talked about before, I think, is like the side of this building. Now, it is a generally natural coloration, but it is flat. There's no texture you can really see to it. So something like this stands out pretty hard. A, it's a building, but you get what I'm kind of saying. That flat aspect of it does not help within camouflage past a certain point. When you can add some texture to your item, that's when really getting into really camouflaging your item, is because it's going to break the outline even harder. Now, you can achieve some texturing with paint. Just the way you kind of layer your paints on there, it is going to have a popping effect that achieves some texture. Even the camouflage you wear has a texture to it. I mean, just the creases, the folds when you're wearing it, it does add some texturization to the camouflage pattern. But camo nets do it the best. They really do apply texture really hard, and then vegging out applies it even harder. So yeah, but applying it to backpacks is a pretty good thing to do, because it breaks up the big bulbous kind of outline of it. And we're going to take a look at what this looks like bare out in the distance, and what this looks like with a really simple pack cover out in the distance. Even though this is already a natural color that works well in this environment, in most environments, we're going to see what a little bit of netting does for it. Other items you're going to see netting applied to is helmets. So I touched on this already a little bit too, but helmets are something you're going to see a lot of camouflage applied to, especially these days. It's been brought back into the fold as far as something to do as a standard SOP for a lot of units and just in general. And what this is doing is, again, it's breaking up hard outlines, especially with your body, because the body is picked up very easily by the eyes. It's just something we recognize. Like likes to look alike. Your head and your shoulders, they just stand out pretty hard. So applying scrim to your helmet, into your kit where able, it's a really good way to apply a good disruptive effect on your body, on your kit, and just in general blend into your natural environment a little better, because you start to look more like it. Something you're seeing more nowadays on standard rifles, and not necessarily just sniper kind of rifles, is applying it on your rifle, so your optics, and even on the rails you'll see it, because while this is camouflage, because I did apply paint that works in my environment, it still is a very recognizable shape. So holding this out, if you see this like leaning against something or poking out of a window, maybe not a window, but like against a tree, you might be able to recognize this shape a lot easier than you'd think. So applying scrim to your optic and your rails can very easily break up the outline of that and the hard outlines that it does have. And that's one method. People go a little crazy with it. I think it's a good thing to do if you need to do it. This is more of a case-by-case thing, because once you apply that on there, it's just one more thing you have to really watch out for constantly, because you're using your rifle constantly. So let's touch on vegging out a tad bit. So vegging out, which is obviously the coolest way to do camouflage, is also the hardest way, because if you're not good at it and you do it wrong, you're just going to make yourself stand out even harder than you thought you already were. So that is just taking the natural environment around you and applying it to your body, your position, your gear, and breaking up the outline a little more, and really actually using the natural environment as your camouflage pattern. You can do it with netting, and ghillie suits are a really good way to think about it when you talk about vegging out. You know, you're taking a piece of netting or a piece of clothing that has had netting applied to it and tie down points, and you're taking burlap and you're taking valuable vegetation, and you're really just blending in hard. I mean, that is the most natural form of camouflage you can really find is vegging out. For a backpack like this, applying some burlap strips to it that are colored or even just natural color is going to help out. It's going to be a little bit of disruptive effect, but when you apply your vegetation to it, it's going to break it up even harder. Now, less is more in that kind of game, because the more you go, the more it's just going to look like a big old bush. And if you're anywhere like we are, bushes don't really just pop out of nowhere. They stay in groups, they stay in certain areas. So if you know what you're looking at a big old bush in the middle of the open, you're going to be able to spot that pretty quickly. But putting this on here with the tall grass we have some parts of the year, just in general, if you're along a fence line, rubber bands you can be your best friends here, or hair ties, or even just 550 cord tied off through the MOLLE webbing or whatever webbing you have on your backpack or kit is a pretty good way to veg out. From there, all you're really looking for is just making sure you're matching that environment. You're not taking something from 50 miles away, putting on your kit, moving 50 miles away, and then you're in a completely different environment. So, you know, stuff like this, it exists everywhere in Colorado, pretty much on the eastern plains. You can put it on there, it's sparing locations, and just really break up that outline, because this stuff, against that background, it's just going to look more like the ground. But I'm not going to go too far into it, like I said, because we don't have forever to talk, and it is something that takes a lot of practice. So vegging out you can learn on your own. You just got to get out there, look in the environment, take your gear out there, do it again, take pictures, have your buddy go out there, do it again, and you get my point. It just takes a lot of practice to veg out, but it's the most effective way to camouflage yourself in your gear is to veg it out. So let's get into a practical exercise of looking at this thing with the netting on it. All right, so we're gonna take this backpack out a little ways, and we're gonna see what it looks like without anything applied to it with this natural color, and then we're gonna take a look at what a little bit of netting looks like on here with working with that natural color, and what kind of effects we can achieve really easily to hide and aid in concealment for a large object that can stick out pretty easily. So let's take a look at how this works. All right, so you can see my trusty assistant with the rucksack. So we're gonna have to take a knee with a bare ruck and see what it kind of looks like. All right, so you can see that ruck pretty well, still like that. The good earth tone is doing a pretty good job as it is, but we're gonna check out how well it works with a little bit of netting and see what that can do for us. Just break up that general outline a little harder and make things a little neater. All right, so let's see what a pack cover plus a tad bit of netting does for that rucksack. And you can see it's just working a good bit better. Harder breaking up that outline. Camera's obviously going to show us a little differently than your eyes are, but from the eyeballs, it's pretty darn effective. So that's pretty dang cool that a little bit of, you know, non-natural material within a netting and pack cover can do quite a bit for you as far as breaking up the outline of that backpack and just kind of concealing yourself really, really easily. So I do want to talk about this really quick because it's had a lot better effect than either of us really thought it would. But what's going on here is we have pack color. This is a 6-color desert, which does work for out here, thankfully. I know this can be a harder thing to acquire as a pack cover in itself in your preferred camouflage pattern, but live in Colorado, get lucky sometimes. So that already is taking it from just a base natural color, the coyote brown, and putting more of what we're going to see out here in Colorado on the backpack. And then he's applying texture with this camo net. Now this is just one of those individual camo nets, and it's on top of there, and it's just further breaking up the outline with the dual effect of the camouflaging disruptive pattern and applying some texture. So hopefully it really showed on the camera how well this worked, because on my eyeballs, this was quite amazing how well it worked once he took that knee. Even once he just put it on there, it was night and day between the coyote rucksack to that camouflage applied on there. So pretty cool little thing. So now let's just close out this video and go over what we learned. All right, so in this video we went over what is camouflage and how to apply it on our gear and why it matters at the end of the day. Now this is a method, and just everything in here that I covered takes practice. It takes observation, takes sitting out there and using your gear. But at the end of the day, all it's going to do is just aid in your concealment and make it harder for you to see and make it harder to see what you're doing. Just cool things to do over at the end of the day, whether it's hobby, in the military, mil sim, Minecraft, whatever it may be. just camos are a pretty cool thing to do, and spray painting is fun, applying camouflage is fun, and it just has some really cool effects when you do it right. So I hope you learned something from this video. If you have any tips, tricks, things you learned, questions you have, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure to like it, comment that you liked it if you want to, and also subscribe. And then just let us know you like the video that way, especially because subscribers lets us know you guys want to watch more of this stuff. And feel free to drop a comment below the more stuff you want to watch. Now in this video I didn't go over too much stuff we sold on Venture Surplus, but we do sell a lot of stuff I went over as far as like the pouches, equipment that you can do this kind of stuff too, and you can learn more about it by doing it to the gear you bought. And just in general, make sure you sign up for emails, because you're going to be able to find gear like this on our emails. We have it in new stock, restock, sales, featured items, everything in between. And then make sure to check out our Instagram, because we do like to go over stuff like this on our Instagram on a daily basis. Show off the gear we sell so you can learn a little bit more about it before you buy it. But I do appreciate you watching. Thanks for watching, and look forward to the next video with you.